He was called Thousand Pound Wong. Newspapers claimed he defeated foreign strongmen, Russian, German, Japanese challengers, all supposedly overcome. At a time when China was mocked as the sick man of East Asia, one man's strength was said to restore national pride. His name was Wang Ziping, a legendary martial artist, strongman, medical practitioner, and later an official figure in China's national Guoshu movement. But how much of this story is history, and how much is storytelling? On this episode of Kung Fu Explained, we're taking a closer look at one of the most well-known and widely acclaimed martial artists of the Republican era, Wang Ziping. We're not here to tear down a martial arts hero. Instead, we're here to understand how legends were made, why these stories were told the way they were, and what they reveal about martial arts, nationalism, and popular culture in the early 20th century. To do that, we'll begin with a standard account of Wang Ziping's life, the version most people are familiar with, and then carefully compare it with contemporary newspaper reports and their broader historical context. Wang Ziping was born in 1881 in Cangzhou to a Hui Muslim family with a strong martial tradition. His grandfather was known locally as the King of Strength, and his father was a skilled martial artist and shuaijiao practitioner known for his physical strength, nicknamed Thick Arm Wang. Influenced by both his family and the martial culture of his hometown, Wang Ziping began training at around 7 or 8 years old. From the beginning, his practice was described as extremely arduous. According to later accounts, he trained jumping and leaping skills, commonly known as qinggong or light body skills, by digging a pit and repeatedly jumping in and out of it. He practiced stone lifting, post standing, and heavy conditioning, rising before dawn and training until late at night. By the age of 16, Wang Ziping was said to have mastered multiple northern martial systems, including cha quan, hua quan, hong quan, tan tui, pao chui, ba ji quan, along with a wide range of weapons. After the failure of the Boxer Rebellion, many martial artists came under suspicion. Wang Ziping was labeled as a boxing bandit by the Qing authorities and fled to Jinan to avoid arrest. Now, we don't actually know if Wang Ziping was involved with the Boxer Rebellion directly, but as a devout Muslim, it seems improbable, as the Boxers were a heterodox religious movement that practiced spirit possession. Nonetheless, as the tale goes, in Jinan, he took refuge in a mosque, studying Chinese characters, Arabic script, and the Quran, while continuing to train and refine his martial skills. At the time, he even considered earning a living as a dock worker. And it is in Jinan that one of the most famous stories associated with Wang Ziping emerged. One day, at a tea house outside of the city's east gate, onlookers were watching a large watermill turning steadily. Wang Ziping reportedly stepped forward, assumed a horse stance or ma bu, and using a single arm pressed on the rotating mill, bringing it to a stop. The crowd was astonished, and among the spectators was the Cha Chuan master Yang Hongxiu, who questioned Wang Ziping and then took him on as a disciple. From that point on, his training became more formal. His strength increased, and his reputation spread throughout Jinan. It was during this period that he became known as Thousand Pound Wong or Qianjin Wang. Additional stories soon followed. In one account, Wang Ziping stopped a runaway mule cart by lifting and overturning it, earning him the nickname Divine Strength Wang. In another, a German railway official challenged him to lift a massive stone mill at the train station, which Wang Ziping reportedly raised over his head before calmly walking away. Despite these feats, Later biographies emphasize that Wang Ziping was mild-mannered and avoided quarrels and was never secretive in teaching his art. He is often quoted as saying that there is nothing mystical about martial arts, only correct methods and diligent practice, and the development of speed, strength, and coordination. By the 1910s, Wang Ziping's reputation had grown beyond Shandong. In 1916, he reportedly defeated a Japanese youth leader named Sato in Jinan, and in 1918, he defeated another Japanese strongman, Miyamoto Kinsui, in Qingdao. Shortly thereafter, a Russian strongman named Cangzhou, or Cantrell, arrived in China, challenging martial artists in major cities and proclaiming himself to be invincible.
I am invincible! Who dares challenge me? None can defeat me!
According to later accounts, this confrontation culminated in a highly publicized match in Beijing's Zhongshan Park in 1919, where Wang Ziping defeated Cantrell before a large crowd. Following this event, Wang Ziping came to the attention of Zhang, who appointed him to train troops in the Northwest Army, including the famed Dadao Dui, or Big Broadsword Unit. Within the army itself, Wang Ziping's skill was tested again and again. He faced a wrestling instructor in a public match. After neutralizing the instructor's attacks and demonstrating refined control, he was appointed the martial arts team leader. Wang Ziping later established a traumatology hospital in Shanghai, treating injuries with traditional medical methods while continuing to teach martial arts. His reputation as both a fighter and a physician spread widely. In 1921, he was selected to represent the Shanghai martial arts community and meet a challenge issued by an American boxer named Sullivan. It is said that the American tried to sucker punch Wang, who in return knocked Sullivan down, resulting in Sullivan pulling out of the match. In 1922, the renowned painter Qi Baishi presented Wang Ziping with a calligraphy scroll, praising his moral character and martial achievement, on which he wrote, "Subduing the fierce tiger in the southern mountain, ridding the seas of large serpents." In 1928, when Zhang Zhejiang founded the Central Guoshu Institute in Nanjing, Wang Ziping was appointed the head of the Shaolin Division, later serving as deputy director. Stories from this period describe demonstrations of extraordinary control and agility, including leaping onto the edge of a banquet table without disturbing the dishes, as well as performing extraordinary and almost superhuman displays of rope jumping performed before officials in Cangzhou. In later life, Wang Ziping taught throughout China and continued serving in official roles after the founding of the People's Republic of China. He wrote books on both martial arts as well as traumatology treatment. He compiled various martial practices, including his Qinglongjian, or Green Dragon Straight Sword routine. In 1956, following the establishment of the People's Republic of China, at the National Martial Arts Competition and Demonstration Conference held in Beijing, Zhang Zhejiang personally recommended Wang Ziping to Premier Zhou Enlai. When Premier Zhou Enlai later visited Myanmar, Wang Ziping was especially tasked with leading the martial art delegation, taking his daughter Wang Jurong and student Zhang Wenguang to perform martial arts there in Myanmar. Wang Ziping passed away in Shanghai at the age of 94. In 1981, a memorial conference was held to commemorate the 100th anniversary of his birth. What we've just heard is the standard account of Wang Ziping's life, the version preserved in later martial arts histories. But stories like this didn't emerge in a vacuum. In the late Qing and early Republican period, newspapers regularly reported on foreign strongmen being defeated by Chinese martial artists. So now, let's turn to the newspapers themselves and see what they can tell us about Wang Ziping. Let's step back from Wang Ziping for a moment and look at a broader pattern, because once we do, something very interesting begins to emerge. Many of these stories associated with Wang Ziping were not unique. They follow a narrative template that had already been established decades earlier. The earliest and most influential example is the folk hero Hui Muslim. According to his biography, in 1901, a Russian performer named Stefan Lov arrived in Tianjin declaring, "I am invincible in China. Let the sick men of East Asia see my skills." Hui Muslim challenged him, But when the Russian privately learnt of Huo's reputation, his confidence reportedly vanished. On the day of the scheduled duel, he begged off, saying, "I came only to perform. My words shouldn't be taken seriously." Huo demanded a public apology in the newspapers. Shortly afterwards, the Russian left Tianjin. Now, pause for a moment, because if this sounds familiar, it should. The structure of this story is almost identical to later accounts involving Wang Ziping and the Russian strongman, Kang Tai-er or Kantel. A foreign strongman arrives. He insults China. A Chinese martial artist steps forward. The foreigner loses or withdraws. National dignity is restored. Once you recognize this pattern, you begin to see it everywhere. We find another example in the 1918 illustrated publication Shi Shi Hua, Pictures of Current Events. It depicts an unnamed Chinese soldier defeating a Russian strongman. And remarkably, the strongman is again identified as, you guessed it, Kang Tai-er. The repetition is hard to ignore, and it doesn't stop in China. In Japan, the martial artist Seiko Fujita also claimed to have defeated Kang Tai-er, a claim recorded in his biography. So we have to ask, how many times can one strongman be defeated across multiple countries before we suspect that we are dealing less with documented sport and more with cultural storytelling? Either Kang Tai-er made a career out of losing, or no one ever told him that he was losing. More seriously, this pattern suggests that the defeated foreign strongman had become a powerful nationalist symbol. These encounters were not always spontaneous contests. Many were likely staged exhibitions. Figures like Kang Tai-er may have earned their living not simply as athletes or combatants, but as narrative foils. And the story doesn't fade with time. In a 1934 Shenbao newspaper report from Shanghai, a young female martial artist named Yang Jianxia is said to have challenged a Russian strongman. According to the article, once the foreigner learned of her abilities, he withdrew from the contest. Once again, nearly verbatim, the same structure we saw decades earlier with Huo Yuanjia. At this point, we are no longer looking at coincidences. We are looking at a recurring cultural script. The similarities between Wang Ziping and Huo Yuanjia go even deeper. Consider their childhood stories. Some biographies claim Wang Ziping's father initially refused to teach him martial arts, believing the boy too weak to learn them. So Wang trained secretly in a grove near his home. Now compare that to Huo Yuanjia. Frail as a child, forbidden by his father from studying martial arts, he secretly practiced alone in a secluded jujube grove. Different hero, same narrative device. The hidden training, the underestimated child, the destined master revealed through perseverance. This is classic heroic storytelling. We see the same pattern in feats of strength. Huo Yuanjia was said to lift enormous weights and push massive stone rollers. Wang Ziping was called the Thousand Pound Wong, credited with stopping watermills and lifting giant stone mills. Extraordinary physical power becomes proof not just of ability, but of moral and national strength. Even the story of a foreign challenge arena appears in both biographies. In 1909, a British circus performer named O'Brien reportedly set up a fighting platform in Shanghai, mocking the Chinese as the sick men of East Asia. Huo Yuanjia accepted the challenge. Newspapers announced the match. Crowds gathered. And then, O'Brien vanished before the fight. Again, humiliation is avoided through retreat. Again, national dignity is preserved. There is another dimension to this story that is often overlooked. Many of these foreign strongmen were not random challengers wandering into China. They were professionals. Russian and European fighters traveled internationally as part of their occupation, moving from city to city, staging public challenge matches and strength exhibitions. China was simply another stop on a global performance circuit. Seen from this angle, these events resemble something far less spontaneous. They were spectacles, carefully promoted, nationalistic, and commercial, designed to stir emotion and draw crowds. In many ways, they had more in common with professional wrestling today than martial arts. This was public theater, not private war. So, what are we really seeing here? These stories were not merely about fights. They were morality plays, narratives designed to answer one urgent question. Was China weak, or merely waiting to rediscover its strength? At a time of foreign encroachment, political collapse, and cultural anxiety, martial artists became symbolic defenders of the nation. Whether every match occurred exactly as described is, in some ways, secondary. What matters is why these stories were told, and why audiences were so ready to believe them. To understand that, we need historical context. Late Qing and early Republican China was a nation in crisis. Repeated military defeats, foreign concessions, internal rebellion, political collapse. In that environment, a story about a Chinese martial artist defeating a Western strongman carried enormous symbolic weight. It wasn't just a fight, it was psychological restoration, a claim that China was not weak, only temporarily wounded. This is important because Chinese martial arts history has always existed in a space where myth and history overlap. Martial biographies are filled with exaggeration, anecdote, and symbolic storytelling. Yet these accounts were preserved, not dismissed. They became accepted history. Figures like Hui Muslim became household names, shaping popular culture and even cinema. These stories were never meant to function purely as archival records. They lived in the space between official history, apocryphal history, and the emergent genre of wuxia fiction. Together, they formed a shared cultural imagination. Another major shift was also taking place. Martial artists, many from modest backgrounds, were entering the public sphere. Figures from the Jianghu were no longer just fighters. They became cultural actors. Martial arts were becoming declarations of national identity. This idea was articulated clearly by the military reformer Ma Liang. He argued that China's weakness stemmed from overvaluing literary refinement while neglecting martial strength. To Ma Liang, martial arts were not backward traditions. They were cultural assets capable of revitalizing the nation. This was not just about exercise. It was about civilizational recovery. Seen this way, the legends of Hui Muslim and Wang Ziping take on new meaning. They were cultural medicine, stories designed to counter humiliation with pride and despair with possibility. And this kind of storytelling is not uniquely Chinese. In the West, we have David and Goliath, a young shepherd defeating a giant warrior against impossible odds. The power of that story lies not in technical details, but in what it represents: hope, defiance, the triumph of the underestimated. Societies tell stories of strength precisely when strength feels most uncertain. And this brings us back to Wang Ziping. When we read accounts of his victories and feats, we should not see them as isolated episodes. They belong to a much larger cultural movement, seeking to redefine what it meant to be Chinese in a changing world. But beyond legend, what can we actually confirm? Here, contemporary sources help us. On December 9, 1922, the North China Herald reported on a large public exhibition organized by Ma Liang at Nanyang College, featuring demonstrations of Chinese wrestling, martial arts, and physical training. Among the highlights were Wang Ziping's feats of strength. He was already known as Da Li Shi, or the Great Strongman, and the article compared him to the European physical culture icon Eugene Sandow. According to the report, Wang hoisted a roughly 180-pound dumbbell with one arm, spun it overhead, and supported a combined weight reportedly exceeding 1,400 pounds. Whether every number is exact is less important than the fact that Wang Ziping was publicly recognized during his own lifetime as a legitimate martial artist and strongman. This places him firmly within the global physical culture movement of the early 20th century. And it also places him within a state-sponsored nationalist project. In 1928, the nationalist government established the Central Guoshu Institute in Nanjing. Wang Ziping was appointed by Zhang as head of the Shaolin Division, and later as deputy director. These were not honorary titles. They reflected trust, recognition, and political relevance. And General Zhang Zhejiang's respect for Wang Ziping did not diminish with time. In 1947, Zhang gave an interview to the New York Times, reflecting on the decline of China's Guoshu movement. Zhang Zhejiang said that even at the age of 50, Wang could still leap to the height of his own chin, and that he was undefeated in challenges. Even after the founding of the People's Republic of China, Wang's reputation endured. In 1962, he appeared as a Tai Chi master in the film Big Li, Small Li, and Old Li, at a moment when China was rebuilding its physical culture after the Great Leap Forward. He was not included as a relic of a vanished world, but as a model of vitality for a nation attempting to stand back up. In 1963, he became the focus of an English-language cultural survey documentary, portraying his family as both modern and rooted in tradition as well. Every weekend, they practiced martial arts together. This was not nostalgia, it was continuity. And Wang Ziping's legacy continued through his family. His daughter, Wang Zhurong, became a national champion and professor at the Shanghai Sports University. His son-in-law, Wu Chengde, became both a martial artist and a physician. His granddaughter, Grace Wu, carried the tradition forward. In 1989, the family moved to the United States, bringing Wang Ziping's teachings into the global martial arts community. When we step back, a clear picture emerges. Wang Ziping was not merely a figure of legend. He helped shape Chinese martial culture across imperial decline, republican nationalism, socialist reconstruction, and then global transmission. Few martial artists bridged so many eras, and perhaps this is where legend and history finally meet. Because however we interpret the stories, Wang Ziping's impact is beyond dispute. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and for watching this episode of Kung Fu Explained. With this series, I'm trying a few new things and doing things a little differently than before. Hopefully, you find the new format more interesting and more entertaining too. My goal is to bring forward the important stories, histories, and deeper truths of the Chinese martial arts, a subject that I hold very close to my heart. These arts are more than just techniques. They are living cultural treasures, and it is both a responsibility and a privilege to help preserve and share them. If you enjoyed this episode, I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you found interesting, and just as importantly, what you would like to see explored in future episodes. Your feedback helps guide the direction of this series. And of course, if this kind of thoughtful, historically grounded martial arts content speaks to you, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with others who care about the deeper side of martial arts. It truly makes a difference and helps this work reach a wider audience. If you would like to support the channel further, I also have a Patreon community where members help make projects like this possible. For those interested in continuing their journey into martial culture, my online store offers carefully selected martial arts books, training equipment, educational materials, posters, and yes, some of the coolest martial arts themed apparel you'll find anywhere. Every bit of support helps sustain this effort to document, preserve, and share the traditions that have shaped generations of practitioners. But most importantly, thank you for being here. Until next time, keep training, keep learning, and keep the spirit of martial arts alive.